Hello, everyone, and thank you for registering for this enablement session from SAP Partner Service Delivery. The session topic today is to tweet or not to tweet, and it'll be presented by Mr. Richard Duffy. Please note the session is being recorded, and in this remote training session, your name may be visible to other people who are viewing the recording. So if you have any objections to this, then you should disconnect at this time. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. And if you experience any problems with the audio during the conference, please press *0 for operator assistance. So now I'd like to hand it over to Richard Duffy to commence the session. Over to you, Richard.
Great. Thank you very much, Peggy. And again, let me add my welcome to all of you who have joined today's session. I know for many of you in the Northern Hemisphere that this session is set up for. It is the summer holiday period, so I do appreciate you taking time to join us for today's session. And what are we going to focus on in today's session? Well, really it's all about Twitter. The what, how, when, where, and why of Twitter. So we're going to talk about some Twitter basics, and then we're going to get into talking about some of the tools that are available to work with Twitter. And one of the things I like to do with a session like this is I know we often get quite a broad cross-section of people with different levels of experience with some of these different topics. So today's topic, we're really going to be focusing initially on some beginner-level topics, if you like, just to make sure everyone has the same baseline of understanding. Then we're going to move on to some more intermediate topics. So today's overall presentation is really targeted at people who have a beginner to intermediate level of experience with social media. So with that said, let's just talk about quickly, what is Twitter? I mean, fundamentally, Twitter is a free service that basically allows anyone to say almost anything to anybody as long as it's 140 characters or less. And if you think about it, it's kind of the stream of consciousness, the what are you doing right now kind of microblogging that has taken hold and permeates right throughout the entire online communications world. It's almost like instant messaging that's gone public, if you like. So the question then is, well, is that all there is to Twitter? I mean, and the answer is no. A lot of people are using it to tell not anybody in particular what they had for lunch, but a lot of people, matter of fact, millions and millions of people are using Twitter every single day as a way to network and communicate with business contacts, both new and old. So if you think about it, the whole process of using Twitter is constantly changing, constantly refining. And the best way of telling that that's actually happening is if you look at the number of application developers who are building new applications that take advantage of the Twitter functionality, starting to incorporate it into their solutions. Even developers such as SAP, we are now incorporating social media functionality into all of our new generation of products, whether it's SAP Business One, whether it's Business Intelligence 4.0, or even getting into some of the newer on-demand solutions like Sales on Demand. So that's really the indication that Twitter is here and it's here to stay. So the first thing you really need to do is, of course, you need to sign up for a Twitter account, and that's very, very painless, and you do that at twitter.com. The second step is to go and check out the Twitter help guide, and that is at help.twitter.com. And that's a good location to get a whole bunch of your basic questions answered. And if you go and you visit that particular site, it is, it is designed to really get you going as soon as possible. So speaking of getting you going, let's take a couple of minutes and let's just talk about the overall agenda for today's session now that I've taken care of, if you like, the preamble and set the stage. So we are going to start off by talking about the basics. We're going to talk about setting the foundation because I think with everything that we do, it's important to have a common frame of reference. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And a number of you might have heard me present before on marketing topics, and you'll know that there's some things that I always like to start off with and reinforce. So today's session's not going to be any different. We are going to talk about that. We're then going to introduce you to some of the Twitter terminology and give that some context. So, if you're at parties and your friends are talking about all these social media terms and they start talking about Twitter and you're sitting there feeling a little bit left out of the conversation, well, don't worry. You'll be able to jargon it up with the best of them after we do our first couple of minutes on today's presentation. So we're then going to talk about some specific tactical things that you can do because I think one of the things that we all look forward to when we attend presentations and learning sessions on marketing is to try and understand what are the specific tactics that we can utilize to help our businesses. So we are going to cover that. I'm then going to talk about a couple of specific tools that I use every single day to help me in my work as the SAP Business One product evangelist. Now, important to note, all of the presentations that I do on the subject of marketing are product agnostic. So even though I am a Business One person, if you've ever seen my website at www.richardduffy.com, you'll know that. We do not focus on any specific product in today's in these presentations. So we're going to then talk about how do you use Twitter and how do you then take the message that you're putting out to your market through Twitter and how do you amplify that. And then finally, we're going to talk about some specifics of utilizing Twitter for lead generation. Because I think one of the things that I hear from partners all around the world consistently is that there is an expectation, certainly for many people, a personal expectation and an organizational expectation that participation in social media should help to generate leads. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to give you some hints and tips as to how you can use Twitter as a lead generation tool. And then a couple of other things that Twitter is also useful for, that as you're sitting around in your organization talking about social media, talking about how you can incorporate into your strategy, what are some of the other things that you can use social media and Twitter specifically for. So, with that said, let's actually get into the body of today's presentation. With any marketing activity that you do, I think the first thing that's really, really critical is to think about your strategy. Think about what it is that you're trying to achieve as a result of getting involved with this particular marketing tactic. And Twitter and the tools involved in social media and the participation in social media is fundamentally tactical activity, just the same as running a marketing campaign, building a website, whatever the case may be. Those of you who have heard me present before will know that I talk a lot about this concept of strategy before tactics and how critical it is to make sure that you have clearly determined what it is that you want to get out of the tactical activity that you're participating in. Now, Stephen Covey, who's the gentleman who wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the habits that he talks about is begin with the end in mind. And that is really critical with this. Before you even pick up your keyboard and start blasting out your stream of consciousness, if you like, to the broader Twitterverse, and the Twitterverse is a way of basically referring to the universe of people that's out there on Twitter. So before you start doing that, first thing you need to think about is what is it that I want to say? And more importantly, not what do you want to say, but to whom you want to say it and why. We talked a lot in some of our previous marketing enablement sessions about this concept of identifying your ideal target market. Unless you are able to identify your ideal target market, then it makes it very, very difficult to talk about the kinds of things that people want to hear. I think at the end of the day, we all want engagement. We don't want to be. There was a film called Shirley Valentine where a lady called Shirley, she had nobody else to talk to, so she was talking to the wall in her kitchen. We don't want to be like Shirley Valentine. We don't want to be talking to the wall. So in order to make sure we get that engagement, you need to spend some significant time thinking about what it is that you want to achieve with this. Now, a great way of doing that, again, you might have heard me talk about building a listening station. The idea behind a listening station, it's really giving you the opportunity to go out there and listen to all the conversations that are occurring in social media, whether it's through Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, on the web generally, and just listen to what the hot topics are that people are interested in. And then on the basis of that, determine what it is that you're going to say to contribute to that conversation. And why do you want to contribute to that conversation? Well, marketing, or the definition of marketing that I like to use, is marketing is getting people with a need for your product or service to know, like, and trust you. So in order to build that know, like, and trust, if you think about what that is all about building, sharing with, and learning from a community of people. And you'll get that engagement. You'll be able to build that know, like, and trust when that community starts to perceive you as being an expert. So that community will look to you for information that helps them make their lives easier, that helps them solve their business problems. Now, that's really what this concept of know, like, and trust is about. Before someone will buy from you, they have to first and foremost know that you exist. But that's not enough unless you're Apple Computer or somebody like that. Not only do they have to know that you exist, but they have to like and trust you and your organization before they will get enough engagement to want to purchase from you. So what makes them like you? Assuming that, in the first few engagements in a marketing discussion, you don't get to meet them face to face. They don't get to see that you are a great person, you are a nice person. Not that they necessarily want to be spending all of their time with you from a personal perspective, but from a business perspective, that you're the organization they want to work with. Well, how are they going to do that? How are you going to get them to like you? Well, they will like you when you start helping them solve their business problems, when you share information that helps them address a challenge that they have, and they'll trust you when other people also start to recognize you as such. And when you have examples of how the information that you have, the information that you're sharing has helped others. So that's really what this is all about, this entire strategy of getting engaged with Twitter. It's about sharing information. So you are, as the slide says, you are in the information business. So then, a number of folks, you might have heard people talk about, I started with this Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn and, it didn't really work for us. Well, my experience has been the reason why probably 80% of initial engagements in social media fail is because people run out of things to say. Now, those of you who have heard me present before will know I never run out of something to say. But from a business perspective, I think it's really, really critical that you need to have a content strategy in place. So what is a content strategy? Fundamentally, a content strategy is about mapping out what are the topics that you're going to talk about. What are the topics that your target market is interested in hearing? How often you're going to share that information about those topics? How are you going to share that information? Are you going to do it via blog posts? Are you going to do it via Facebook? Are you going to do it via static pages on your website? So all of those things really fall under the category of a content strategy. And the little subtitle on this particular point in the slide is Content Rules. Now, Content Rules is also the name of a really fantastic book written by a lady called Anne Handley. And you can find it on Amazon.com. Just search for Content Rules or in your local bookstore, although bricks and mortar bookstores seem to be gradually fading into being a thing of the past. But yeah, Content Rules, great book talking about and giving you some great ideas about where you can find great content, how to create great content, and also some sections on how to share that content. But that is fundamentally what Twitter is all about. It's not about telling people what you had for breakfast, unless you're a celebrity. Telling people where you are, who you're talking to. It's really about sharing that information. So if you've got a good, strong content strategy, then using tools like Twitter will help you get that message out to the market. So let's talk briefly about some of the Twitter terminology, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and you can impress your friends at parties with your incredible knowledge of the latest social media jargon. So what is a tweet? A tweet, fundamentally, anytime you post or write your 140 characters on Twitter and hit the send button, it's called a tweet or tweeting. So that's, I think most people are familiar with that. It is just amazing how so many of these words enter our everyday vocabulary now. You'll often hear people talking about these things as part of their day-to-day information. Now, I noticed that somebody's having a little bit of a challenge with dialing in, and we do apologize for that. The good news is that today's session is being recorded, so in the event that you are unable to connect, you will be able to view the session after we're completed. You'll be able to watch a replay of that. So I think Astrid, when you do get to connect, my apologies for you having difficulties. But anyway, what's the next one? The next one is a handle. So a handle is your name that you have on Twitter. So for example, my name on Twitter, my Twitter handle is @RichardADuffy. And this is, anytime you see the little @ before a name, basically what you're seeing there is somebody's handle. Now, in a previous session I talked about going out there and grabbing your digital real estate. And the Twitter handle is an example of your digital real estate. So, you can have a personal handle, as I have, or you can do what SAP has done. And we have a number of different Twitter handles that we use which represent the different teams that share information via Twitter. So we have a Twitter handle for our SAP channel partner team, one for the by design team, and I'm going to show you some tools which will allow multiple people in your organization to be able to share and put information out there using that same Twitter handle. Matter of fact, you can basically use even the standard Twitter web interface. As long as you have the username and password, then you're good to go. So the third one is following, and that's simply the act of adding somebody to your list of people that you're following. What does that do? That automatically sets it up so that anything that they tweet out comes in to your homepage or comes into your main stream of Twitter messages. Now, there's some really cool things that allow you to be able to see what people are talking about without actually following them. But we'll talk a bit more about that. A reply, that's what it's called when somebody writes a tweet directly at your handle. So, for example, if somebody is replying to me, they might put @RichardADuffy, enjoyed your session today, or would like to have heard more about such and such, or whatever the case may be. So that's a reply. And again, feel free, Anytime you want to provide me any feedback on anything, you can use Twitter and then just reply to me using the @RichardADuffy, and I will see your message and respond to you as quickly as I can. A retweet, that's a tactic of republishing somebody else's tweet. The original tweet along with the author stays intact, but basically you're just showing to your followers somebody else's tweet. Now, it's a bit of a dangerous thing doing retweets. Might sound like a contentious thing to say. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that shortly. A DM, this is a direct message. This is a message that's sent directly to another user. Now, they have to be following you for you to be able to direct message them. But again, it's a very useful tool for sending private messages, and a good choice if you get involved in an individual conversation that you don't necessarily want to share with the whole world. That DM, it's almost like being able to have a private instant message conversation using Twitter, as long as each message, of course, is less than 140 characters. But there are ways of sending longer messages now with Twitter that I'll talk about. The final one, and for me, apart from, of course, having a Twitter handle, the most important thing is a hashtag. And a hashtag is a way that people categorize tweets so that other people can use the same tag, and then people can follow not a person, but they can follow a hashtag. Give you an example. Anytime I tweet about SAP Business One, I'll put the hashtag hash, which is like the pound sign. I'll put hash SAPB1. And then a whole bunch of people who might not necessarily be following me follow that hashtag, and they get information about SAP Business One that way. Anytime I tweet about the training that I do, all of my training sessions, I have, if you like, got a little brand for those called SAP Partner Catalyst. So I will tweet out and I will put hash SAP Partner Catalyst, which is a little bit long for a hashtag, and then it does tend to take up quite a lot of your Twitter, your 140 characters. But again, you will know what's going to work effectively for you. So then let's get into the tactics. Fundamentally, the question that many people ask is, they say, well, why would I want to use Twitter? And that is the real question. A lot of people look at Twitter and conclude that it's a great big waste of time. Now, Twitter can be a waste of time. It has an incredible capacity, like many social media tools, to chew up your time. But here's some things that I think are worth considering when you're thinking about Twitter. Remember, first thing we said, begin with the end in mind, strategy before tactics. So think about your objectives. But you might want to ask yourself, how can Twitter help me achieve some of my already stated objectives? Give an example. If you'd like a way to connect and network with other people in your industry or with other people who share your views, Twitter is a great tool for that. If you want to get instant access to what's being said right now, this very minute, about your company, your people, your products or brand, Twitter, again, is a great tool for that. Do you want a steady stream of ideas, content, links, resources, and tips focused on your area of expertise or your area of interest? Twitter is a fantastic tool for that, and I've got to tell you, by far and away, that is the main thing that I get out of Twitter, personally, is that it gives me the ability to find out additional information that helps me do my job. And my job is to help you as SAP partners be more successful. So, Twitter absolutely has been incredibly valuable for me to do that. Number 4, again, monitoring what's being said overall about your about your customers, about your brand. There are ways that you can monitor that information. And the great thing about Twitter is, with search engines like Google now indexes Twitter. So once a tweet has been sent out there into the Twitterverse, it doesn't necessarily disappear. It has a life of its own. So it's helpful to see exactly what people are talking about, and that's where Twitter can help you. Another idea: would you like to extend the reach of your thought leadership? Now, what is thought leadership? I mean, fundamentally, thought leadership is when you're out there putting forward your thoughts, opinions, views, knowledge on a particular topic. Classic example of that, that's really for many people what blogging is about. So would you like to be able to let more people know about the things that you're doing to spread your thought leadership messages? It's absolutely a fantastic tool for that. Promoting your products and services directly to a target audience. Well, this one's one of those areas where I think the jury is still out on this one. And certainly I have seen many people utilizing Twitter, and I'm one of them, to promote information about a product or a service. But the information has to be more than just a selling message. It has to be more than just a product pitch, buy my product. It really has to be about providing people information that helps them draw that conclusion. If all you're doing is pushing out messages, selling messages to the Twitterverse using Twitter, very, very quickly people will stop listening to what you have to say, and you may as well stop saying it. But like all things, if you mix up the content that you're putting out, that can be incredibly powerful tool to help get the word out about your products or services. Now, there's a great example or a great article from one of the social media, if you like, experts that's out there, a guy called Chris Brogan. And Chris has written a great article called 50 Ways to Use Twitter for Business. So jump onto Google and search for 50 Ways to Use Twitter for Business, and you will find that article from Chris Brogan, and it's got some more really, really good ideas in it. So let's talk about our very first tool now that we've talked about some of the fundamentals of Twitter and how you can use it. And one of the tools that I use every single day, and there's two of them that I'm going to talk about. The first one is Hootsuite. So what is Hootsuite? Hootsuite is, if you like, a social media dashboard. So I'm going to give you a quick look at Hootsuite and explain to you exactly how I use that. So bear with me for a second while I quickly share out my computer screen. And I'll select Hootsuite. And hopefully now you'll be able to see my Hootsuite user interface. Now you probably can't tell right now because I've got it running in full screen, but the great thing about Hootsuite is that Hootsuite runs inside your web browser. So it is totally cross-platform. It runs on mobile devices, basically any device that has a web browser. Now there are dedicated Hootsuite applications for your iPad, iPhone, Android device. But if you don't have any of those and you just fundamentally want to start using this tool, again, it's in a web browser and you can go to it at www.hootsuite.com. So what does Hootsuite allow you to do? Across the top, you'll see all the different social media presences, if you like, that I have or that I contribute to. So I send out messages under the Twitter handle of Get a Great Start. That's where I send out messages focused on the SAP Business One Starter Package. I have my Richard A. Duffy, and I actually have a couple of friends that I help them out from time to time with some of their social media and marketing. So I've got a couple of those up here. But I've also got the ability to use Hootsuite to manage some of my other social media properties like LinkedIn, Foursquare, and Facebook. So I can use this one tool to post status updates and monitor status updates that are occurring on all of those different platforms. So every single one of these columns is, if you like, you could think of that as being a stream of information. So I have my home feed So this is the equivalent of what I would get if I was logged onto Twitter.com. This is all of the people that I am following, all of their tweets that are coming through, and any tweets that I push out also go in here. I've got this column here which is capturing any time that my Twitter handle gets mentioned on the web. Direct messages that people have sent me, and so on. And you can see I can scroll across. I've got sent tweets, and then across here I've got a session or a stream where I'm following a particular hashtag. So anytime anyone is tweeting out using this hashtag of #SAP, it will pop up here. Now, an important thing to remember with hashtags as well, if I am following the hashtag of #SAP and somebody tweets out and they use the hashtag #SAPB1, I'm also going to see that in here. So it starts from the left-hand side and starts passing through the hashtag from left to right. So if I put #SAP rocks or #SAP is cool or #SAP whatever, anyone that follows #SAP will see that. So a great way of being able to follow multiple hashtags just with one. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Then, of course, across here, I've got my LinkedIn stream. So this shows me all of the people and all of their network updates that have come through via Twitter. Oh, sorry, my apologies, via LinkedIn. And at any point in time, you can refresh that just by clicking on the little refresh button, and you'll get an update of all that information. And you can go back quite a long way, and you can see that information. So if I wanted to send out a tweet or update one of my websites, for example, I can just click up here, and you'll see it's got the number of characters that I've got left. So I might, for example, want to say, presenting my second session on Twitter for business. Check out Chris Brogan's article, 50 Ways to Use Twitter for Business. So now, again, you'll see it's keeping track of how many characters I've got left, how many characters I've typed, and then what I'm also able to do is I can include links in my tweet. So if I'm including links like URLs, they can take up a huge amount of space in my tweets. So that's where these tools that shrink down URLs are very, very handy. So if I wanted to share a URL with you, I could say, or my website, and then I can go in here and I can put in my website address, www. For example, richardduffy.com, and then I can specify which tool I want to use as a link shortener. In this case, I'm going to use the one that comes with Hootsuite called Owly, and then I say shrink, and what it does is it shortens down that URL and drops it into your message, and then I can hit my send now button. Now, what you'll notice is I'm now 12 characters over my allowable content that I can send out via Twitter. Now, there are ways that you can send out longer tweets. There's a tool, for example, called Deckly, DECK.ly, and it will shorten your Twitter down and send it out with with one of these links so that your longer tweet can go out. So, great way of doing this. Before you hit the send button, what you can do is you can then go and reread back through. So I'm going to shorten this down a little bit more, get rid of some of this content. So there you go, presenting my second session on Twitter. Check out Chris Brogan's article, 50 Ways to Use Twitter for Business. So that's the main thing that I want to put out there, and the link. So that's all good. So all I do is I hit send now. Now, here's where Hootsuite's very, very helpful. You can send it out from one or more of your social media properties at once. I'm going to send it from Richard at Richard A. Duffy. So I just click on there, I tick it, and then I say send now, and then Hootsuite's going to send that message out for me. So very, very simple example of how to use that. For me, the big advantage of Hootsuite is this area of analytics. What Hootsuite allows me to do, because it's, what people will want to know is they will want to know how well are you getting your message out to the market. So there's a whole range of different tools that are available to help you do that, but I use Hootsuite for this. Now, give you an example. Not only does Hootsuite allow me to track my engagement via Twitter, it allows me to track who's clicking on those short links that I've sent out and so on. But it also, one moment. Pardon me, just had to sneeze for a second there, and I think I've got another one coming. Nope, it's gone away. It also allows me to pull together information from Google Analytics. So what are you looking at here? Here is a real-time report that Hootsuite has pulled together, which pulls information in for me from my Google Analytics. It shows me where the traffic is coming in into my website, which are my most popular pages on my website, the traffic sources, and then I'm able to add additional content to these reports. So all I do is I go up here under More Actions and choose Edit. And then what you'll see, Hootsuite has this report builder, and it has all these different analytical modules. So I'm able to pull in all this information about my Twitter profile stats, mentions by influencers, the different keywords and how they're trending over time, a whole range of additional statistics about who's clicking on my links, what countries are they in, how many people are resending my links out to other people, and so on. It also can pull information in from Facebook. So with one report, you can pull together all of this great information. Now, the thing with this is the Hootsuite product is available free of charge, but as you start building more and more of these reports and using more and more of these components in your reports, you will then have to start getting a Hootsuite account, and you start paying for that. So that's a model called freemium. It's free to get started, but then when you really want to get going with it, you need to start to pay. So that's how their business model works, and that's what I use Hootsuite for. So let's just quickly now dive out of Hootsuite, and I'm going to go back to my main presentation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk quickly now about TweetDeck. So TweetDeck is another one of those tools that I use. So let me just quickly start sharing it out. So I'll pick TweetDeck here, and I'll share that. So now you'll see this is TweetDeck, and TweetDeck gives me a lot of the same functionality that Hootsuite does in terms of being able to track and participate in all of my social media streams. But one of the things that I like to use TweetDeck for is a lot of people say, well, gee, social media can chew up so much of my time. One of the 7 steps to marketing success that I talk about is living by the calendar. One of the things that you can do with TweetDeck, and by the way with Hootsuite as well, is that you can go and you can create a tweet. You can sit down and you can say, you know what, I'm going to take 1 hour on every Wednesday afternoon and I'm going to do all of my social media. So I can put in all of my tweets all of my Facebook updates, all of my LinkedIn updates, and when I put in a Twitter update, for example, I could say, don't forget to visit www.getagreatstart.com for more info about the SAP Business One Starter Package. And again, what do I want to make sure I include? Okay, I want to make sure, first of all, that I can type properly and I can spell. So it's always a good thing to do. Go back and review your tweets before you hit send. I want to add some hashtags, so #SAPB1, and the hashtag I use for the starter package is #GetAGreatStart. Okay. And then I go across here and I click on this button that says schedule this update. So basically now I can say I want this update to be sent on this day at this time, and then I can set the time. I can also use this and go back in and call up any of my scheduled tweets, and I can cancel them. Another great thing that you can use Hootsuite for is you can take the same tweet and you can go into that tweet and you can use the translation tool. So for example, I can click on here and I can say, I want to translate this into French. So there you go, and it will use the Google Translate tools to translate that into French. And then what I always like to do is to make sure it got it right, is I'll then go and translate it back to English. Okay, yep, so that's correct. And then I can go back in, say I want that in French, and then hit send. So a really, really good tool for doing that. Again, if you are responsible for getting your messaging out to multiple people in different countries, it's a great way of doing that. And then, of course, I just hit send, and away we go. So that website is not actually in French, it's in English, so I probably don't want to have too many folks coming and visiting that unless they do speak both French and English. Of course, if you're in Canada, that could be helpful for you as well, but I'm going to send that out and hit send, and there you go. That tweet is now out there. So that's TweetDeck. So I'm going to just stop sharing that now, and we'll go back to our main presentation. Okay, and back to our main presentation, and let's move on. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, now that I've given you a look at Hootsuite, and we've also taken a look at TweetDeck, is this idea of amplifying your message. So not only can you use those tools to push your messages out, but it's also really, really important to link all of your social media properties together to spread your message. What do I mean by that? Well, what you can see in this particular slide deck is, and I'm just going to jump into full screen for a second here, is when you're looking at this particular slide, you can see I've taken a snapshot of one of my pages on the starter package website that I run. And you'll see on the right-hand side, I have this website, by the way, is built using WordPress. And on the left-hand side, I have these things called widgets. And these widgets allow me to take social media content. Here's some content from, and I'll just switch on my pointer. Here's some content from Facebook that comes into a widget. And then here's some content from Twitter that comes into a widget as well. So what are you seeing on that widget? Fundamentally, I've set this widget up so that it takes any of the content that I post out on Twitter and it shows it and it brings it up in a constantly updating stream on my web page. So that's one example of how you can amplify your message. So even if somebody's not following you on Twitter, they can come onto your web page and they can see some of the things that you've put in Twitter. So what's one of the most important things that you can put in your tweets is, and you can see an example here, is a link to additional information that people can go to. So, for example, I did a blog post on, accessing a whole bunch of demonstrations of SAP Business One. So I tweeted out that was information. Want to learn about SAP Business One? That's the key message I've got. So people who want to learn about SAP Business One, all they need to do is click on that link, and it takes them to that specific blog post, and away they go. Now, you can now link Twitter with Facebook, LinkedIn, a whole range of different properties. So, for example, if I've now got that set up, so every time I tweet something out, not only does it update Twitter, but it also puts a post onto my Facebook page and onto LinkedIn. Why would I want to do that? Well, for many people, they will want to engage with you through one of those other mediums. So, they might choose to use Facebook as their main way of engaging with you via social media. Other people might choose to use LinkedIn. So, again, when you're deciding, should I link those things together, remember, what is it that's going to be in my content? LinkedIn, for example, is traditionally thought of as a more business-related tool. How do I make sure that only my business-related tweets go into LinkedIn? Well, a great way of doing that is in LinkedIn, when you tell it that you want to link your Twitter account and LinkedIn for status updates, there's a little option you can tick to only republish on LinkedIn the tweets that you do that have the hashtag of #in, #in. What will then happen is when you put in a tweet that has the hashtag of #in, only those ones will be republished as status updates for you in LinkedIn. So there is an incredible number of things you can do to tailor and customize how your message gets out. The secret to this, start with the basics and then do some more digging. And you know what? How do you learn about these things? Again, find people who talk about these topics on Twitter and follow them. When people share out those links, click on the links and take a look. It's incredibly powerful, and as I said, that's what I use all the time. Using Twitter for business, before we wrap up and go into our Q&A. One of the most important things that you can use Twitter, or the most important ways that you can use Twitter if you are wanting to use Twitter as a lead generation tool, is by utilizing Twitter search. Twitter search allows you to see what people are talking about on specific topics, and it allows you to put in additional parameters, or what we call search operators, that allow you to go into search.twitter.com and put in searches using some of these operators. So, for example, if you are looking for people who are talking about small business accounting within 15 miles of New York City, then you can go into your Twitter search. In the words area, you can say all these words, and that's where you would put small business accounting. You can search for an exact phrase. Any of these words. You can search for specific people. You can search near a particular place. And it will construct, if you use this advanced search, it will construct the search string for you. Or you can go in and you can type it in directly. So if you're looking for small business accounting near New York City within 15 miles, you would type small business accounting near :NYC space within :15 MI. And that will use the geo-tagging features of Twitter, and it will find any tweet that's been sent by somebody who's within a 15-mile radius of New York City about the subject small business accounting. So you use Twitter search to find the conversations that you have determined are relevant to you when you are doing lead hunting. So Twitter for Business is about hunting for leads. But you're not hunting for leads, you're not hunting for people who are talking about these topics just so you can jump straight on there and immediately start a sales pitch. What do? Best practice that I have found is that you start engaging people in a conversation first. So, if they're looking for information about small business accounting in New York City and you're a partner in New York City, you might then want to send them a reply, and you might say, noticed you were looking for information, check out this blog post, and then a link to the blog post, or visit our site, for more information, and then point them at something which is going to help them. Okay? So by far and away, this is the easiest way to use Twitter for Business. And again, remember, people buy from people. So what you're going to use Twitter for is to start building that relationship and then developing that engagement. The quickest way to annoy somebody is to jump onto Twitter and immediately start pushing sales pitches to them. One more thing I would like to point out to you, there are some awesome tools available from SAP as well that enable you, if you are using PowerPoint and you would like to start incorporating Twitter and that community connection aspect of Twitter into your PowerPoints. For example, one of the things that I like to do, and I haven't done it in this presentation because I'm using SAP Connect, Adobe Connect, which doesn't like this too much. But if I was doing a presentation on stage at a conference or whatever the case may be, I use these Twitter tools for PowerPoint. What do they enable me to do? They enable me to do things like when I move to a specific slide, automatically in the background, it will send out a tweet for me. How do I do that? On the notes page, I put in a little string of information with a tag on it, and when I get to that particular page on PowerPoint, the Twitter tools will automatically pick that content up, push it out. Another one, for example, on a PowerPoint slide, you can incorporate little, if you like, widgets that will then take specific comments that are happening in real time and dynamically populate your PowerPoint slide with those comments. So if you've got an audience full of people who are all on Twitter and you want to engage with them and see what they're saying, you can incorporate that in. And again, the URL for that, and I'll tweet this out after today's session, www.sapweb2.0.com. You can see it there, copy it down, or follow me at Richard A. Duffy, and I will share that URL out after today's session. But just wanted you to be aware of it. 5 Twitter tips for success, because it wouldn't be a good presentation, well, my view of a good presentation, unless I gave you some tips for success. Tweet great content 3 to 5 times per day. That's the best kind of average that we've tended to find works. Reply to conversations. Retweet other people's content, but the warning that I mentioned to you before, if all you're doing is retweeting other people's content, eventually people will stop following you. You need to add your own original content as well. Use that Twitter search we talked about to reach your objectives, to do that lead generation or to do that brand monitoring or monitoring competitors, finding out what customers are talking about, and be easy to retweet and follow. What do I mean by that? Wherever possible, try and keep your tweets to about 120 characters. Makes it easy for somebody using one of those tools to hit retweet and add your details at the start of it and push that information out. So, hopefully that's been of value to you today, the time we've spent talking about Twitter. Certainly, I learned a few things as I was preparing this presentation. If you'd like more information, I've got a great white paper I can send to you on using Twitter for Business that I've used to help me pull together this content. Again, if you'd like a copy of that white paper, just drop me a note. Richard.duffy@sap.com is my email address, or direct message me via Twitter. If you're following me, you'll be able to do that. Or reply to me at Richard A. Duffy, and then just let me know you'd like a copy of the white paper, and I'll send it out. So with that, I'm going to throw back to Peggy to open up for Q&A.
Great, thanks, Richard. That was very interesting. Participants, in the chat pod, there is a link for our quick feedback form. It takes 1 minute. We would appreciate it if you can access that link. You will need your SUser and your password to get signed on to that. We will officially end the session then. On behalf of the SAP Partner Service Delivery team, I'd like to thank Richard Duffy for his presentation today. You will receive a recording of the session by email from your Partner Services advisor within the next 48 hours. Again, we'd like to ask you to provide your feedback using the link now displayed in the chat window. And again, you'll need your login and your SUser ID and password. So this now concludes the presentation. We appreciate your attention, and you may now all disconnect at this time.